few seconds here to make it official. Okay, it's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 22nd of October. Hereby call the regular meeting of the Finance Standing Committee to order. And we have a forum. All members are here. We have in attendance also Mr. McElhaney, our general manager, Haley Dodson, confidential assistant, and Denise Fritz, administrative department manager and finance manager. And nobody yet at this point on, oh wait, one attendee on Zoom. Let me see who it is. Eric Johnson on Zoom. Okay. I don't have a chair report other than to note that the next meeting, I think we have the next scheduled meetings on December 2nd, on December 10th, right? December 10th. I was going to ask about this, maybe Ms. Fritz could tell me, and Mr. McElhaney, if there's any issue with it being so close to the single meeting of the month of the board, which I think is the 12th. We don't have anything we have to bring to the board, like in a recommendation, anything like that on that date, do we? Can we wait? Can it wait till January? Yeah. I was wondering about that. We had that, we played with the schedule because we usually have one meeting in that period between, November and December. And I think for some reason we had trouble getting funding and having it on the week before, which would have been the 3rd. So it's fine. The 10th is fine if there's nothing we can. I was concerned in particular about if we want to do a new policy or a new procedure on the administrative cost allocation. If bringing it to the board for approval in January, it's okay.
I think so.
For the budget scheduling and stuff like that, yeah. Okay. Move on then to ad hoc subcommittee reports. We have 2 subcommittees, of course. We have one on the, as I mentioned, the administrative cost allocation, and also on long-term financial planning, long-range planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the long range planning has not met, so we gotta get back on that.
Yeah.
That just hasn't been the focus. And then the overhead allocation, we're working on it. It falls kind of in my court to do some modeling with the, so we can get our recommendation.
Yeah.
We're looking at time and effort of staff and different.
So we continue. You think you guys will have something on the 10th?
I will have something on the time.
And on the financial planning, with the long-term planning, I think we might discuss that a little bit in connection with the budget update, because there's some issues there that popped up, as you'll see, having to do with capital needs appearing, raising their ugly head, essentially. And we want to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, we definitely need to dive into that one.
Any members from any committee member communications, brief report on your activities that are relevant to our work, or any questions, short comments? Anyone?
When we get into the budget, I have some questions.
Oh, we have questions on the budget. Yeah, this is at this point, I invite public comment, and this is comment from either people in attendance or online on Zoom that is relevant to the finance committee's purview, but it's not on the agenda. I will note there was one public comment, a written public comment that was submitted in writing. It is on a topic that's not really germane to our work, and but it is on the website, adjacent to our agenda if anybody wants to see it. That's a short letter. Do I hear anybody see anybody raising a hand or raising a hand here? Okay. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. Approve the September 24th, 2024 minutes. I just saw a couple of things I will note. There's sort of, for clarification, a couple of typo. Well, not, it's sort of Well, one's a typo. It's in the chair report. Last sentence says the agenda was revised to have item 4B, and there's a comma presented first. Take the comma out. And this is a matter, you can talk, discuss this, but this is a matter of maybe not saying something that would be a little misleading. In the, on 4B, under the, description of the discussion about the skate park maintenance, it was said that all agreed the bathroom will need to be cleaned daily and there will be cost to open and close the park daily. I guess I have a little problem with the all agreed because we didn't actually take any action. We didn't actually agree to anything formally. It was certainly discussed, it was certainly mentioned. But I don't know how you would, if anybody has any suggestions for
Consensus.
consensus.
I didn't hear any.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
The bathroom being clean every day, so that's why I said all.
yeah, I mean, all agreed. I mean, I guess it was, I don't know if it's sort of a I mean, these are informal things. I kind of say, make sure there's no sense that we took action on anything.
You could just say, could you just say, there was discussion about the
The need,
needed daily
the need-
cleaning of the bathroom. I fall back on that.
that's a good one, yeah, discussion of the need for daily cleaning of the restrooms, yeah. Okay, and then, down below, Mr. Pearson moved to move the document on for further review and recommended the board approve the document as amended during, I say, this meeting. So it's just clear that we're talking about the amendments we were proposing, under 4A. That was at the meeting, subject to the minutes. So those are the things I saw. Ms. Chrisman.
In the paragraph under the bolded item 4A, Mr. McElhenney's name is misspelled.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I copied that. When I did my report, my report on the meeting for the board, I reproduced that, so I was not thinking. Very good catch, okay. And obviously comments we're very thorough about listening to comments. People just have to sort of go to the agenda to see what they're talking about, but I mean, it's accurate. We can't really go into more detail than that in the minutes. So anyway, anybody else have any, anything they want to see changed or corrected? So I guess the correction will be, once the substantive one, it'll be, it was, let's say the committee discussed the need to clean the bathroom daily. And that there would be costs to open and close the park daily. I'll write this down.
You would keep that one more
Okay,
time.
yeah, the committee discussed the need to clean the bathroom daily. And the costs to open and close the park daily. Yeah, and I guess the rest of it is just self-explanatory. And then Mr. McElhenney spelled properly. And down below this meeting, and then at the first on the chair report, 4B, no comment presented first. With those changes, turn it over to the committee for motion.
I so move with the amendments made
Second.
to approve the minutes.
Second.
Consent agenda, actually.
It's consent agenda, yeah, that's just the minutes, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded that the consent agenda be approved with the changes noted in the minutes. I have a roll call vote. Pierce? Oh, no, it was, Mr. Cannon seconded. So, Ms. Chrisman.
Aye.
Oh, I saw. Mr. Pearson.
Aye.
Mr. McCann.
Aye.
Mr. Henderson.
Aye.
Ms.
Down.
Dell. Aye, motion passes 4-0.
Two L's.
Okay, 5-0, actually, sorry. Regular business, maybe we can start, this is the budget update, first quarter budget report and staff recommendation. Whichever staff person wants to present this, we start with that.
So agenda item number 4A, the discussion and consideration of the fiscal year 24-25 first year quarter budget report. and staff recommendation. So this is showing where we are, from at the first quarter, 24-25. So that's July through September. We've had two budget adjustments through the quarter, one for our general, our moving for the administrative office. That's coming out of our general fund reserves, as well as an increase to the CDP permit costs, which is just being transferred from another, operational line item. But we wanted to note that in there, and we got, the board approved that throughout the quarter. So those are both identified, or those changes have been made within this report. So, the first quarter report is really interesting, just the way our revenue flows. I mean, it looks like we're in deficits, we kind of have, we have cash flow management through, especially through the first quarter. Particularly, you'll see it in the general fund, because we don't get property taxes. They don't really start coming in until October, November. Where we will see larger chunks, and obviously the general fund is, the majority is funded by the general fund.
Yeah.
So. No, if you want me to go in detail through each one,
Well,
Tom, or I know.
I think,
No, I guess this.
I don't think it's necessary. I think we'll have questions, actually. We can ask
Okay.
questions because,
Yes, and yeah. And then, before this goes, if we need to make any changes in here, I can obviously make them before we present this to the board.
okay, well, yeah, first of all, yeah, I'll open this to questions from the members of the committee. Start with that.
Do we want to do it? I have several questions.
Yes.
And so,
Mr. Henderson, go
but they're
ahead.
throughout the whole document.
Yeah, I think that's what we
just
should
wanna go
do.
one page at a time
Yes.
and see if there's any questions. I would just, does anybody else, does that make any sense to anybody?
I think there's a lot of pages, so I think if
Just
you
go
have
right-
questions, we'll just attack your questions.
Yeah, just-
Okay, I do it because there are a lot of, there are a lot of different, it's about,
Okay,
you just to tell us which page,
You want me
which
just to get
agenda
started?
page it is.
Yes,
Yeah,
you go
agenda
first.
page.
Okay.
Yeah.
so on page 11,
Mhm.
under the expenses category 50 for salaries.
Yes.
There's salaries and wages for the fire department and then firefighter pay. It's not a big expense, but what's different between those two lines?
The firefighter pay, it might be reserves. I mean, we haven't used it at all, so I'm
No.
thinking it's reserves.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I would have to double check
Actually,
on
I think
that
that's
to be
reserves
sure.
too, isn't it?
Yeah, when you say reserves, are you talking about reserve firefighters?
Correct.
Yeah, so we had one reserve firefighter who then most recently resigned.
Mhm.
And now we have another reserve firefighter that will be hired on to kind of close that gap.
Okay.
But we had a rather robust reserve firefighter program, and since last year when we hired the third full-time firefighter that completed our staffing, we've used them less and less.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Yes.
Yep, we are. Page 13. At the top end, there's FHRP contract fire department.
Mhm.
I was just curious, is that an annual expense?
So, that is for the weed abatement costs.
Okay.
And then after consulting with the auditors and talking through those, we're actually moving those off of the expense report and putting them onto the balance sheet because it's more appropriate, because it's an account, it's just a pass through, it's an account. So,
Okay.
so it was budgeted in here because they've always just run it through expense and revenue, but we're paying for it and then we get reimbursed. So, yeah, once the auditors come through and they do the final review, that may change again, but so that's what that is and why you're seeing $0.
Okay,
We've already spent that money.
okay, it's
really.
gone.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
But it's coming back.
Let's
It will
go
come
back.
back.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll be watching.
Okay.
It's the boomerang one.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, this is gonna be on page 18. About a half a dozen of rows down, talks to the M&R, Vets Hall, facilities and resources.
Resources, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it has for the period, for the quarter, it was only $13. And the budget is $30,000. And I was wondering, that just seems like something's missing there.
That's maintenance and repair.
Maintenance and repairs, they just spend it
They-
throughout the year.
So, okay, so wouldn't be abnormal.
So it was $13 for the period, which is representative of September.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
so
see.
645 for the
For the
whole
year,
year.
For the
So,
first quarter.
First
yeah.
quarter.
Okay,
So, I would say that,
you just didn't spend any money?
David's doing a great job with managing his budget, saving for a rainy
And
day.
that the budgeted amount was, that's basically based on past,
Correct.
Right.
basically past experience. So we may have a better year this year.
And he's working on a razor thin budget. So, yeah.
Okay, then on page 23, on the property taxes. Category 44, property taxes to come down. 23,
Mhm.
there's a negative number.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's an accrual. So we haven't gotten those yet to clear the accrual from last year.
oh, okay,
Mhm.
all righty. So then,
It's slower at the trickle in from the county is slower. You'll
Oh, yeah.
also see that in the fire department. We're waiting on a grant money from Safer.
I got you.
So there's, yeah.
Okay, then in the next one, under expenses and salaries,
Mhm.
there's the bottom three, the part-time admin, sick vacation, and
Mhm.
holiday admin.
Mhm.
Did we miss budgeting monies for that?
No, so we don't budget in those because honestly, when I'm looking at it, it'll roll up. It's basically part of our salaries and wages, because I don't know how much
It's
leave time people are gonna take. So I'm budgeting in salaries and wages as people are working full-time, and then when they take their leave pay, they're getting paid out of these different categories instead of salaries and wages.
okay.
So we don't
it's-
necessarily budget in there because we don't know what people are gonna use
Okay,
throughout the
so
year.
but it's tucked kind of into the
Salaries and, yeah, so it's accounted for in salaries and wages,
Yeah,
yes.
because it's about $20,000.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Okay, then on the next page, on 24,
Mhm.
the, curious on the insurance, specifically on the insurance one, which has, it looks as though it's an annual payment for the
Correct.
insurance, is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Do we get a discount for paying it annually? Back in my younger days, I sold life insurance. And if you bought a single annuity premium on a policy, it was cheaper than if you paid for it quarterly or semi-annually. And so I'm just wondering if we pay them all up front, they've got that money all year long.
Mhm.
We should be getting a discount unless there's one built into that.
I think that,
Yeah.
yeah,
We can check into it. I don't know. I think we've been doing,
we
Yes.
have, I mean, I don't know if there's even an option to pay SDRMA on a monthly or quarterly basis. Is there?
I was totally tuning out, not listening.
Is there an option to pay SDRMA insurance on a quarterly basis?
Oh, instead of,
Yearly?
Is it a yearly?
they provide us a yearly invoice.
Yeah, so we'd have to check into it and ask them.
It's more like your homeowner insurance, car insurance. It's probably an annual, it's probably a standard per practice. You can look into that, but it's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
standard practice.
It was a sizable piece of change and if there's
Yeah,
a
oh,
discount
yeah.
to be had.
That's a big
yeah.
one.
What does that include your road count?
Work comp is not in this number, no. Work comp goes into a liability account in every payroll period that gets distributed to each department because it's a payroll
So it
cost.
gets broken down.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's around 250, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I mean, we pay quite a bit for insurance between workman's comp and this
Yeah.
a year.
Okay,
Go ahead, Keith.
next one's on page 25. And it's about 5 down, has to do with legal counsel.
Right. Encumbrance?
So, how does, there is money, he has been paid something already fiscal year, but nothing was paid for this particular period.
Which one are you looking at?
You're looking at the sixth line or the 100,000 budget?
No, the one right above that one,
Oh, the,
259,000,
yeah.
budget and change, nothing for this period. But we have paid him something in the prior periods of this fiscal year.
Mhm.
Is that, how does he get paid?
There's,
Or how do they get paid?
But this
So
is
we pay them monthly. It just, we missed a payment in September, so you'll
Okay.
see two payments,
this is first
which,
quarter.
See, and remember that period activity is just a month,
Right.
and it's kind of confusing sometimes. You look at it from the fiscal.
no, I think that's the retainer and that gets paid
Yeah,
monthly.
okay.
So
So period is monthly.
yes, but we did have a month where we missed a payment, and so you'll see two payments.
So it'll be
in
bigger
previous-
next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So- Thank you for your patience.
This is all, these are good questions.
Okay, on. Oh, it doesn't have a number at the bottom.
So it's 38.
38, there it is.
38, okay.
And I think, the first, specifically, the first one under sales,
Mhm.
the period activity was $179. This is for water sales, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't seem, if the annual total is 3.8 million, it would seem like that would be more like,
We bill bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly.
oh, so it doesn't happen.
Yeah, we
That's-
don't.
Okay, then, so think of that.
So perfect, but just for the folks at home, period is month
Correct.
Yeah.
and fiscal is the year.
Year, yeah.
It's the year to date,
So-
so this came in the first quarter, it'll be like next time.
So we didn't,
Yeah.
we didn't
It'll be
take in really a
first
lot of
quarters.
revenue
Yeah.
in September.
So those are just some late people sending their.
Mhm.
Is there still a plan to go to monthly billing?
I have heard it briefly mentioned, once we get AMI totally up and running, that it would be easier. So I would imagine.
We,
might-
you know, we can probably more likely bring it to the board for discussion, but,
Mhm.
the AMI water meters are the big holdup right now. So once we upgrade, those meters to where we can get this instant billing, push a button, boom, we can do it, that would make monthly billing more feasible.
Okay.
Matt, will that be phased in as they get installed or when the last one?
Yeah,
when
there
the-
you go.
What,
We
the
can talk about that a little
monthly
bit, because that's something.
Yeah.
that is-
Yeah.
it's-
When the last one is
That'll,
installed.
that'll definitely be a topic for today and we'll definitely bring something back.
I would think it would have to be after it's all. I don't know if we could do
Right.
two different
Yeah.
billing periods.
That's what I would
That's
think
not-
too.
You want to hear all of the complaining at one time.
Yeah, exactly. This is,
I mean, and the board would have to choose to do it. I've never even looked into it, what the pros and cons are and that sort of thing. So I think that's a bigger discussion and doing it. We would wait until they're all in.
Will there be a drop-off box for payments? Matthew?
At the new office,
Yes.
we're working on that. There's some, logistical issues with where that box would be, pulling out of, the office. Because David's a little worried about that drop box and where it sits and potentially people pulling out onto the street where people cross the roads. I don't know how many people have been by the new office building, but.
Yeah.
There will be a drop box. I just don't know if it's gonna be a drive.
Drive
through
up.
box,
Mhm.
but we're working on it.
Yeah.
But if everybody goes digital and, uses our online website.
What a dream.
Yeah.
So
Keith, you're,
not done.
okay.
On page
Continue then.
43, I'm assuming the answer is still the same on sales for the,
Yes,
wastewater.
Yeah.
So that's because it's,
billed bi-monthly.
okay. So on page 49, that answer, that was the answer to my first question for the sales there, which shows it's $288.
Mhm.
But then, and maybe I should already know this, but for category 46 loan proceeds,
Mhm.
the $8 million,
Mhm.
that is from,
For our wastewater bonds for
Okay.
the SST project.
all right. And the three entries are because.
Because I made a mistake the first time I entered it. I entered it with the wrong sign.
This is the
I-
first time.
You picked
they-
it up.
yeah.
Well, I really wish it would just like, cause if I try and make the fix on the same day and I thought they would just like zero each other out, but it created three entries. So yeah, that was just my mistake.
Then on page 51. And this is probably just the sequencing stuff, but about a half dozen lines down, it's government fees and licensing, wastewater department. 127,000 annually. And.
Yeah.
Zero. So so that just comes in
We-
once a year?
Yes, it comes in once a year.
Once a year. We're almost there. Okay, we asked that one. And again, thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Any other board members have questions that are still out there? Dave?
Nope.
Cheryl? Aaron?
Not questions, but I want to commend the work of the capital improvements.
Thank you. I was just gonna ask, does anyone have any feedback on that? It's our new, kind
think it
of
looks
like the
better.
first time we've been incorporating this into the whole budget and update process. With the new format. So if anyone had any, it's not understood or doesn't make sense.
The explanatory page is very helpful also. Make sure we understand what the
Yeah.
headings are.
That's-
I think it's much better. I think it's much more informative, I should say, than what we had before.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I had, everybody's done. I had some questions and maybe points to raise for discussion. Just so I'm clear on the difference between original total budget and current total budget. All the columns.
All
All the columns.
For the original budget, can we just explain it really quick?
Sure.
So the original budget is when the preliminary budget comes out and I put that forward for approval, that is just the operational budget for the fiscal year that I'm getting an approval for. So in here, the original total budget is basically the preliminary budget for
Okay.
24-25.
Yeah.
Then when I come back in August to get those roll forwards
Mm-hmm.
for the capital projects that we're rolling forward,
Mhm.
I make all of those adjustments, which then with those adjustments, it ends up in current total budget.
Mhm.
So really the difference between the original total budget and the current budget is just those encumbrance roll forwards. So like the
Okay.
capital projects that
Right.
we're asking to roll forward.
Okay, that's good to know, because
Yeah.
that may be obscure to some people,
Mhm.
because of the preliminary. I mean, because you're right, it's the budget we had before the end of the fiscal year.
Mhm.
And then when the end of the fiscal year, you do those two, you do the encumbrances and the reserves, of course.
Mhm.
Let's see, a question about, I wanted to see what we're, actually in the enterprise funds, I was particularly concerned about this. The difference between the original budget and the current budget, is a large difference.
Yes.
Because of I guess, the capital projects that were added to the budget.
And the
this-
roll forwards.
And the roll
Well,
forwards. Well,
Actually, the ones that were added and approved for 24-25 are in the original total budget.
right,
So the difference that you're seeing in the larger difference are the project roll forwards.
mhm.
And yes, they are quite large, I think,
Yeah.
particularly in water.
Uh,
Well, and wastewater.
But were those roll forwards in the final budget? They were.
Well, yes, that's what the final budget, I
Yeah.
mean, the final
The one
budget is
as
really,
approved,
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's just you do see it,
Well, but when I present it to the board, I'm not actually making the entries yet,
Yeah.
because you all haven't approved the roll
Mhm.
forward, right? So you're never really seeing like.
you don't
the
really see
total-
the actual numbers
Would
until.
be,
you
right?
See now, yeah.
Until
just
now,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Which I think feeds into that long-term planning.
Mhm. So on page 29, when page 29, this is where it feeds in long-term planning. We actually see this for the first time.
Yes, yeah, I know.
Which is rather alarming to
Mhm.
look at.
Mhm.
The budget with all the roll forwards
Mhm.
is in deficit, and this for the, let's say, especially the water fund. But the overall deficit in the enterprise funds is 3.3 million, 3.346 million.
And the way I like to
Yeah.
think about it, because we do account for this all in one fund,
Mhm.
the capital projects and the operational budget, is that they're planned reserve expenditures. It's not like we're budgeting in a $3.3 million deficit.
Mhm.
Operationally, so that's just how I keep it clear in my head, because it doesn't, it's difficult. We're not operationally budgeting in such a deficit, but we have planned reserve expenditures, and so that's what that deficit represents. To me, is our planned,
Mhm.
This is what we have planned to
Yeah.
spend out of reserves.
Now, do we have, how does this match how do reserves match this? Cause I think in water, the reserves are not, obviously wastewater reserves would be adequate. But,
Water has
water
more,
reserves?
water has more reserves
Yeah,
than,
more, they have more than
wastewater.
wastewater, but they have enough for that, the $2 million.
we have over $2 million of
Okay.
reserves in water.
Mhm. I think I have,
Is it an adequate, if we
Yeah.
had to spend all of that money tomorrow, is it leave an adequate balance? I mean, that's again, something like you said, some of the questions that the long-term planning is going to have, and that I hope it can help better inform instead of singularly looking at each project and approving it. But I have to say, we've had a lot of discussions internally lately that the projects that we're rolling forward that were approved, just for example, like the effluent line. I'm rolling forward, I think, $800,000 or
preliminary engineering
600,000.
stuff, right?
It's gonna be millions.
Yeah,
So,
before-
we've committed to a project that's actually gonna be way more than that. And so those are the conversations about how are we gonna
Yeah.
fund that?
Mhm.
And so then also ties into what's an appropriate reserve balance, what's our minimum, what's our maximum, that whole conversation. So it is hard because I think that the way we've done this is we're really singularly looking at not even just one singular project at a time, even just a piece of that project.
Mhm.
And that makes it difficult for the board to make all these decisions, because then you see them in aggregate, which is never really presented at the time to see that,
Yeah.
oh, wow, look at how much, we're there. So those are exactly the questions we're trying to answer with that long-term planning. And
And we're meeting internally, because if you take a look at these projects in aggregate, it's startling.
mhm,
We've got estimations for this effluent line,
4.5 million.
4.5 million.
Yeah.
Stewart Street takes approaching 2.5,
4.5.
yeah.
because we're trenching up Highway 1. Because State Parks no longer wants us in their sensitive habitat area. So initially, what we thought was gonna be a $2 million project rose to 4.5,
It's not their money.
and it's not their money. We take a look at the Stewart Street tanks and the foundation changes, the tank changes, the CDP. That project went from 7-8-ish to now we're in just above 2 million. When we look at the water meter upgrades, not just the guts of the water meter, but now we look at eventually replacing the brass bodies that are at the end of their life, $2 million project. So we looked at our reserves, and while the reserves are healthy in water and wastewater, we're starting to look at long range sustainability and how much can we safely pull from reserves? Do we need to look at financing for these projects? What is the priority on these projects? We have had the discussions, with Jim. How long can that temporary line be in place? I mean, I've spoken with President Gray, Chairperson Gray about it. How comfortable are we with that temporary line? But as we move forward, the more these projects get put off, the more
More
expensive
expensive
they
it
get.
gets.
Yeah.
And our revenue doesn't seem to be changing with the increase in cost of these projects, if that makes sense.
Wait, because our water sales are static. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, the question I have, it raises the question of the water meters. What the timing is on that, because it comes up in meetings at the board, from public comment, and I have to say, there's this discrepancy, there's this large discrepancy, 13%, between the, production numbers and the bill amount numbers. And I know it's been said that that's because of timing issues with the meters, but it's a very consistent, fact over, every month or every, bi-monthly period, there's always this gap. So how much of that, with the meter, I mean, getting the meters changed or getting the new meters in the new bodies and new brass bodies, is that ultimately a solution to that problem? Because it sounds like we haven't found any. I know Jim says, he hasn't found any leaks or anything in the water system. There doesn't seem to be any problem in the pipes. So it must be meters, or if it's nothing else, but if it's meters, then the meters are off. Because so many of them are probably old. And my question is, what's our timetable on the meter replacement? That seems to be one of those things we gotta take care of pretty early. So it affects revenue.
So we've had this conversation and, a failing meter always favors the customer.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how many of you love Nextdoor, but Nextdoor recently exploded with the conversations about the meters and a rate increases kind of kicked in at the same time. So there's a lot of misunderstanding. A failing meter always favors the customer. So it definitely doesn't favor the district. Our manual reads on these failing meters have gone from just in the last year. I think when I came in, we were doing, let's say 17, 18, 1900, and now we're reading 2600 manual reads, which is, and we don't have the staff for that. So it's come to a critical point in which, initially we're trying to save the district. We wanted to manually install these meters with staff. Go in, replace the guts, get the AMI water meter up and running. We can phase in the actual brass bodies, but it was really the registers that we were trying to replace. Well, now the more the meters fail, we have manual reads, we can't catch up on the manual installs. On top of that, Jim Green, Mr. Green had been looking at companies that would be interested in an RFP to do it. Could be upwards of $200,000. They're not very responsive. So they're doing, those types of companies that are doing these installs are doing bigger projects throughout the county and the state. And we couldn't get responses back on, hey, are you even interested in something like this? They are finalizing an RFP to be put out for an install of all of our registers to go in. That will help the water loss calculations, will instantly get our website activated. Everybody will have the ability to set alerts for leaks up to the minute live data. I think it's cycles every 15 minutes, 5 or 10.
Wow.
So we're pushing hard and fast on getting that RFP out to do that install, which would at least get the readings correct.
Well,
Then,
increase your revenues probably 10 to 12%.
Well, that's the right here, that's the issue here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's Scott, yeah.
What's the level of expertise required if you were just to hire bodies? I mean, like.
Scott and
hired. I don't think it's overly difficult. It's just, I would have to talk to Cody and Jim about it.
Or even temp somehow, if it's relatively manual under supervision.
Yeah, Jim would be the better one. I get the feeling that if it was that easy, we probably would have hired temps already. So I'm sure it's a little more
I
complicated.
mean, I think he is looking at targeting companies that don't necessarily just do this work all the time. But I mean, we have to have someone who's insured and I think they need to be bonded, there's certain, so.
And we wanted initially to do it in phases. And since people weren't so responsive, there was talk of like, okay, well, we could give this company 50% of the meters to do and this company 50%, that's project splitting and attending government code issues. So we really have to do it all in one shot with one big RFP, which will be coming out soon.
Yeah. And just to explain for people listening and also maybe community members and me actually, there are several things going on here. There are the head units, the ones, that actually transmit the information. They're the internal workings of the meter, and then there's the bodies. Are there three elements that you have to worry about?
It's two, I think
It's
it's the
two.
registers.
The registers
and the brass
big,
body.
which has the moving parts in it, right? When those, because that's what fails. Those are the things that start slowing
So,
down.
and so the way Jim or Mr. Green described it to me was the registers is what we're targeting now. Because
Yeah.
once those registers are up and running, the information that they will provide will let him know which brass bodies are failing. So instead of just buying them all and doing the
Yeah.
whole community, he can target
Right.
that with those that really need it. So that's how, because, doing all of this, even though in finance, I try and understand the phases and the steps in this one, for some reason, it seems really easy, but it took a while for me to get it. But so that is the way he's explained it to me.
So, yeah, that's our big goal is once we can get those in, that's gonna help us identify the priority areas for the
And
brass
that's,
lines.
that's where the hangup is now in terms of getting someone to do it.
get the registers
Get
in.
the registers in.
And his team has done, I don't know, 50 to 100 or something like that, like, but then they're,
4,000.
but then they're doing leaks and they're doing, you know, and then they have to read every, it's been a problem, staffing wise.
So I guess it might just, it's not a matter of, you know, this report obviously is
Yeah.
not gonna be it's not the subject. I just want to get a perspective on where our problem is with the revenue.
Yes.
And why but to my mind, this is the first thing you gotta do
Mhm.
to make sure before you start going like Prop 218 and all that stuff, because you gotta find out what we can get, you know, close that gap.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then, once we get those registers in, that'll inform the brass bodies, and then depending on how many brass bodies, I mean, that's another $2 million to
Yeah.
replace all the brass bodies in the district, you know, and that's approaching as well, because these meters are 20
Well-
plus.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that can be done selectively though, I think too. I
That's
mean,
what we're
selectively.
hoping, is it's
yeah.
not gonna just be.
You
all-
can So Jim can identify if something on meter is obviously abnormally low. I mean, reading that abnormally, just not what you'd expect or something from a particular location. They can sort of target it, yeah. Anyway, that was basically my questions. I'm gonna take it back to the committee, if anybody else wants to ask anything. We have and Julie Amadeus here, we have another visitor for the record. I will open this to public comment. And see if anyone, either of you want to comment on this issue? Well, I mean, I think you're here for another one, but let's see, nobody here, so nobody in attendance. I'll move on to, turn this back to the committee for discussion, and motion. And the motion would be, I believe, as we describe it, to, consider, recommendation, basically consider whether to, move this on or recommend the board approval of this with any changes that we want to see made. So in fact, it's the alternative over the committee.
Well, I would make the motion to approve the budget, first quarter budget report and recommend it to the board of directors.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee approve this first quarter budget report and recommend its approval by the full board. The roll call, Mr. Pearson,
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson. Mr. McCann.
Aye.
Ms. Christman.
Aye.
And Ms. McDowell. Motion passes 5-0. Next item is the sort of the sequel to our session last month, where we struggled somewhat to come up with some concept of some numbers for the maintenance of the skate park. I will turn this over to I think probably Mr. McInerney, because he can describe what the process has been since what discussions have been, so it'll give you a little more insight into it.
Yeah, thank you. So agenda item 4B is our discussion and consideration of a proposed funding framework for skate park maintenance. We came, the last finance committee meeting, we came forward with what was a very disaggregated sample of several different skate parks of various different sizes from all over the county, with varying costs associated with them. After speaking with Chairman Gray and kind of working in the background with Skate Cambria and with David and Mr. Geary, we found ourselves just chasing ourselves down a rabbit hole of all the different variables and costs that could be associated with the skate park. And it just became unmanageable, and we weren't any closer to defining what it's gonna cost to maintain our skate park. So our new focus is essentially with the monies that Skate Cambria or Community Council, excuse me, has offered up in their CD accounts, which we basically came together. There's a restricted and unrestricted fund the Cambria Community Council has with $31,000 in each at a moderate return, estimated at $2,000 a year for each fund that could be put towards either the skate park, or at one point there's discussions of the community park. What we've done is has decided on those two CDs will be combined into one. And that is $62,000 that will be in an investment account in which we're estimating about $4,000 a year towards skate park maintenance. The Lions Club is offered $1,000 a year for the first 5 years. So we have about a modest estimation of about $5,000 a year for skate park maintenance for the first 5 years. So we switch gears to say, okay, we're gonna look at this. We're gonna take the $5,000 a year if the board approves, amend the MOU to say for the first 5 years, it'll be $5,000 a year budgeted for skate park maintenance with contributions from the Cambria Community Council, the Lions Club. And at the end of 5 years, we're gonna reevaluate what it has cost us to maintain the skate park. So we'll keep a close eye on the budget and close eye on labor, on what it has been costing to maintain the restroom, the facilities, anything associated with the skate park. We'll keep track of that for the first 5 years and see where we are at the end of 5 years. At the end of 5 years, if the monies are not adequate to sustain the maintenance of the skate park, we have talked to the Community Council and Skate Cambria. We will reopen that MOU to make adjustments, whether they need to come forward with more funds for the maintenance or it's satisfactory. And we'll revisit it then. And I think that's the best approach because we just don't know what it's going to cost us to maintain. It's a very unique community. It's a unique climate. It's a small skate park. Our staffing is different than a lot of other agencies. So, we just don't know what it's going to cost us. So we want to do a trial run for about 5 years and then come back to the table at the 5-year mark.
Okay.
Any open questions?
Yeah, any questions? David, I think
I
it
went through that very quickly, so the two funds are gonna be combined to one for 62.
Mhm.
And are we gonna draw on that for the first 5 years or not?
Correct.
we are, yeah.
I've read the
Sure.
We'll draw on that. I don't know the question's been answered whether, in terms of the original MOU, if you notice that would be our fund. We would have the money.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've talked with,
Yeah.
the Cambria Community Council and, if the board deems it necessary, those funds will be transferred to the CCFD, that $62,000, and we will put it in our investment account with
Yeah.
our
Thank you.
government rate returns.
Yeah.
And then we will have it in the district's hands to form.
Which is what that was the language of the original MOU, but it was current MOU, that would be our fund. It would be a restricted fund. We wouldn't do it, use it for anything else.
There's a couple of.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that would be, and then the, I guess one question I have about determining the full actual maintenance expenditures. Do we have a kind of a sketched out procedure for how we would measure we would be measuring the labor, like we'd have sort of a timesheet or whatever people would kind of use?
Yeah, I'll
like-
work with David
Yeah.
on a tracking sheet. I mean, we're gonna have to do that not only with the skate park
Yeah.
restroom, but the East Ranch.
East Stretch restroom too, yeah.
Restroom.
Mhm.
What we do with our Center Street restrooms and Sheffield restrooms.
And I mean, just my opinion, I would like to automate the tracking so I can do it within the software and so I can run reports on it.
Yeah.
And clearly see, and he can, we can even allocate staff time, within the payroll system, if it's 10% of someone's time or whatever that is. Just so it's consistent and it's not pulling together.
Yeah.
Or having David have to track it on a spreadsheet.
Okay, David, do you have another question?
We're getting 4K from the annuity.
Mhm.
And we're getting 1K from the Lions.
For the first 5 years.
Got it.
No.
So the question will be whether we have to add more money, whether we have to, community council basically has to, or whoever, is, on the private side, has to add more money to that account after 5 years, if it's not enough. And if it's enough, if we're covering, in fact, if we have excess, we might be, be fine. I think that's what we want to see
And
in
that's
5
for a
years.
term of 26 years.
Yeah.
So 26 years at $4,000 a year.
I think so.
So your first stopgap is at five years when you
When we reevaluate
monitor it,
and monitor.
but you still ostensibly have 21 years left of funds.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Hendrickson.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So on the supposition that we're gonna have somebody there every day of the year, and They're gonna take care of the bathrooms and clean up if there's some trash, just bust the area. We know what that's gonna cost us. Cause we can, whatever the hourly wage is times that the guys make, not even including their benefits package, but whatever their hourly wage is times 365, if it takes an hour a day, we know how much that cost is. And I think that's probably more than what this is.
We'll see. Of course, the question is how much time it actually takes. I mean, that's.
I
that's the
mean,
thing.
I hope it takes way less than an
Less than an hour, I
hour to
would
just
think, yeah.
go open or the locks, hopefully we can get them mechanical, so they don't actually have to physically be there. And just to dust through
Yeah.
a single stall bathroom.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not a floor.
That's a good example of
Yeah.
like, we don't know.
We don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to, that's what we have to find out.
Okay, while we're talking, I'm gonna do some math. And what is the wage for the utility, for the guys that would be maintaining this?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
6 an hour or something.
I mean, if we're talking fully encumbered.
Yeah, 20, fully and fully benefited,
Sure. Is that what it costs?
let's say $30 an hour. I mean, just rough number. I don't know off the top of my head.
Like I did some back, I did some little, quick math on that too, and it's
Oh, you did?
about, yeah,
Okay.
about
900.
3,000 a year or something like that. If they do like a quarter hour, yeah,
Okay.
at a bathroom, it's something like that, that range. And that's the main cost. I mean, the other stuff, cleaning up and stuff wouldn't be necessarily every day, because there's not that much trash normally you would have accumulating there in such a small space. Yeah.
And also, if you think about it, through economies of scale, right? So when they're on what we call salary, whatever, we're paying them
No matter what.
no matter what, right? So is there the time available in that day to which they could dedicate toward the restroom? Does that make sense?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So they're getting paid no matter what. Do they have the time within their day?
Yeah, but you're taking that away from other things.
And
You're taking that
It's not
time
free
away
time.
and.
it's not free time because of course, also more time is taken up on doing stuff that, more of their time's taking up. You also increase the need to maybe bring in outside help to take care of stuff too. So that's other indirect cost of that.
True, but we're just into our first year of that added third maintenance technician that we hired when we initially had two, and we were cleaning. We weren't cleaning restrooms. Does that make sense? So we weren't cleaning restrooms with two, then we added the third and brought in that ability to not contract out for all these various different things. We've closed the budget gap. So I understand what you're saying, but also we're starting to see the benefits of that third maintenance technician. And I don't think we fully have capitalized on that efficiency.
So he's not, you'd say, it's a step function, so third person is not necessarily fully utilized at this point. There's probably a little bit of room.
Yeah, that's what I think,
Okay.
but I mean, it's all anecdotal, at this
Yeah.
point, if I told David, they're all running them with their hair.
Of
City will be, and then the third person hasn't been.
I think the thing that's, that $62,000 that we have as a cushion, I think the question here is whether there's any risk of us running through that in 5 years. I think there's not. In fact, there's quite a bit of cushion there. I think it might be. So to me, that's why we have that, why we're gonna have that money, just in case of the uncertainty. Then in 5 years, if it's, if it's clear that we will need more, we'll negotiate.
But,
Sorry.
what I'm gonna comment on is that there's foul weather. It's not gonna be open every single day. And that's something to take into consideration. It might be at 5 out of the 7 days that it's open. So, to sit here and say you're gonna need it for 12 months is not true.
Well, it's gonna be open most days, and Cambria's got pretty good weather, really. I mean, there's only maybe a dozen days of the year when you close it for anything. Even when it rains, doesn't rain necessarily that much, but
So I had another clarity question. So the 62,000 that's in the bank drawn interest, the 4,000 that it's roughly providing a year is what we're hoping will cover it, plus or minus the 1,000 that the Lions eventually provides. But if it exceeds that, you tap the 62,000, CCSD doesn't pick up the slack? Or how does that work?
well,
It's under our control.
the 62,000 the 4,000 will be drawn out of the 62,000.
Well, no, it'll be drawn out of the 66,000 because you'll have $4,000 worth of interest in it.
Well,
you'll have 62,000 to start the year. At the end of the year, you'll have 66, and you take 4 for the next year's time, right?
Well, the interest is not gonna be that much, it's not gonna be 4,000 on 66.
62,
62, 4,000?
that's what, isn't that what?
So if I look at the breakdown from year,
Well, it's not interest, it's total draw, like it's an annuity.
It's total
So you're
draw.
drawing- So you're
That's what I'm
drawing.
saying, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, it's like an annuity.
Oh.
Because the interest is gonna be, yeah, we draw, it's gonna be drawn down.
Yeah.
It'll be drawn down, except that
I see.
we're trying to do a 26, exactly what Scott was saying, it's a 26-year annuity.
I got you.
And annuity, of course, goes down to 0, but we'd like to have, we'd like to eventually have a system where there's it's perpetual. Dick, Dick, go ahead, because.
When I ran these annuity numbers, these were very, very basic numbers, 4%. I've checked with 2 of my financial planners, and basically what this should be in the 5 to 7% range or more. They recommend it to invest it as a retirement fund plan, whether it's a 401k, but you want some stocks in there. I ran some numbers, I didn't make copies of it, I just ran the same portfolio with 5.5%. Normally, when you invest, you like to get 2.5 to 3% over inflation. So if you're using 3% of inflation, you should be able to get 5.5 to 6%. So I use 5.5. After 26 years, you still have $44,000 balance to draw out.
I want to caution this discussion though, because if
Yeah.
it moves over to the CCSD, we're limited in our.
We
investment.
can't invest in stocks.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that we said that the community council might want to hold it. That was an option of saying,
Yeah.
The MOU does read that way.
but you gotta deal with, do I put it under the mattress? And then come say, because I didn't manage the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
I'm returned to that conversation because I don't have the money.
Right.
She's a non-entity. Once we finish this project, the community council has no money for this project unless we hold it, and we can manage it as an IRA. or an investment.
That's your discretion. In other words, of course, it's there to be.
It's already, yeah. Mhm.
And that's why we were saying we just go across the street to Edward Jones and set it up as a retirement fund, pull out the money and just let it go. But again, if you hold it, and you take over the money, then you own it.
Right.
You can't come back to the community council and say, I mismanaged the money you gave me.
Yeah,
and I want
I mean,
my-"
Yeah, we have the option, and I think there has to be, the argument, and we don't get into too much detail about this, but the argument for us holding it is that, yeah, it's more conservatively invested. And, we are using it we need liquidity because we're gonna be using it we're gonna be drawing on it, for annual expenses. It could be more or less. And if it's our account, we may be giving up some long-term earnings, but we also have less risk. There's always a balance. So, from our point of view, from the governmental point of view, it's probably, I think, more prudent just the board will decide this, but the board may decide it's more prudent to have it in our hands.
The whole 62.
The whole 62, yeah.
If it's an annuity, it's probably not as liquid as well, so that's.
We need liquidity, yeah.
Risk return trade-off.
So, but the current, as you say, and this isn't, if people want to know, on page 74, there's a copy of the MOU. It's the second paragraph from the top on that. In addition, as set forth in section 1, prior to putting the project to bid, there shall be funds sufficient to create a reserve fund for operation, maintenance, and repair of the skate park, and an amount determined by the district's board of directors, which is kind of what we're doing now. These funds may be held by the district or the council, allowing for agreements to meet the needs of determined reserves. And so I think at this point, we're talking about pegging the amount at 62 and then having the board make the decision.
Yeah, ultimately the board's decision on
As
how
to whether-
they want to move forward. We talked about bringing this MOU forward because it is rather vague on what the maintenance amount is.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't-
To be
Doesn't even
determined,
try.
it doesn't get close. And so, and a lot of that, talking to Mr. Carmel was on purpose because we don't know what we don't know in
Yeah.
terms of what this park was gonna cause,
Mhm.
what the maintenance potentially could be. So it was hard to put a number on it, but now we're here, we're very close to, it being funded. And now this discussion needs to be had, and we just don't know what it's gonna cost to maintain it.
Go ahead, Karen.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Karen, yes, I'm sorry.
To follow up with what Mr. McElhaney just said, if after 5 years or approaching 5 years, you can determine or foresee that the 62 grand is not gonna be enough to, what it's generating is not going to be enough. Is it possible to go to Skate Cambria and say, raise some more money?
Well, that would be the scenario, yeah, that's what it is, we're talking
But
about.
she's a non-entity. There is no state Cambria. There's-
Well, it's all that guy over there. No, it's all community. It's an account of the community.
Spend all the money, we invest.
Yeah.
There's no money left. She moves out of town, there is no state Cambria. It's a non-entity.
Mhm,
Who are you gonna hold accountable to raise the money?
mhm. Well, it'll be,
That's the question.
the MOU is between us and the community council.
Right,
So they're the partner in this, or the,
but it's for
The
the
private
money that we
partner.
hold. Once
Right.
we spend all the money we hold for, skate Cambria, we're out. We have no liability, responsibility in that.
I mean, 5 years from now, 5 years from now, we probably will know, between now and then, we'll probably have some idea what the needs are. This is one of those situations where there might in fact be a 501c3 specific friends of the skate park, something like that. It might be a 501c3 created for this purpose, long term, because you want to have it in perpetuity. You don't want to just have it for even 26 years. You want to have it kind of based out there with reliable stream, and the private partner may have to emerge in this period to be a fundraising vehicle going forward.
I think they're well
Yeah.
protected because we learned from the work that Denise did on her spreadsheet that Templeton Skate Park only spent $1,508 for a year, and that's a park that's 22 years
Yep,
old.
and that wasn't staff time though. That didn't include
You
staff
don't
time. That was just
allocate
pay out to vendors and suppliers and stuff.
But that's on that
Yeah.
one side, on the 2,000 that we broke down or less.
Yeah. Just to make things official here, I guess if we're done, are we done with questions from the board? Because the committee, because I should open this to public comment, which I think is,
No.
yeah, are you ready? Go
yeah.
ahead. You go first, yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure that the risk is that, we get 5 years down the line, we don't want to blank check the CCSD and the taxpayers. First of all, we could access the rest of the 62. Okay, so that mitigates the risk. There are efficiencies potentially, we're not thinking we're talking about a huge amount, particularly with regard to Templeton, so it's. Where, did we get any answer on the insurance costs?
We did. We looked at it
That was a
yesterday.
like to me.
It's covered under general liability.
Okay,
So from there, it's just the appropriate signage.
okay,
So we reached out to SCRMA, you got to put the appropriate signage, you got to skate at your own risk, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
And
so I
then it's
mean-
covered under general liability.
that's,
So we don't have, there's no delta, there's no change then. Right?
right.
That's good.
So,
Good news.
so I mean, the gravity of the change we're talking about, it seems like it's pretty mild. And
Yeah.
one last, with regard to maintenance, is this something that if volunteers wanted to help with, is that an option under our?
And that's been a discussion before.
Okay,
From the CCSD perspective, we always just take, and I don't mean this in a negative way, we just take it with a grain of salt, because,
right,
ultimately it falls upon us to maintain it, but we definitely will take the help,
but,
but
among the population of, the people that are gonna be using it, there's some enthusiasm that
Absolutely, yeah.
if
And
it were endangered,
there'll be leaders among the youth that will be
Right.
out there and monitoring and.
Eagle Scout projects,
Yeah, all
so on and so forth.
And operationally, for me, my biggest concern, because like general manager kind of mentioned, the staff time, yes, cleaning the bathrooms, but it's more the locking, if it's automatic, that would be great, because I see
Yeah.
that one of the issues we have now is just keeping staff over because they have to lock a bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on
Or bringing
weekends,
people in on the weekends, like
yeah.
that's somewhat problematic, because then you get into overtime, and then you get in having to call back people and pay them for, 3 hours just to come unlock or lock
David
bathrooms.
and I are already
or-
talking
yeah.
about a
So
budget adjustment.
we've gotta-
Before the board.
Yeah,
To modernize all of our restrooms that you can, from our smartphone, lock and unlock.
because that's not worth,
Because we have on-call
Time.
staff that drive from Paso Robles and Templeton.
Okay.
To come open a restroom and close a restroom.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
So in a circuitous way, I'm just asking, the risk
Yeah.
that we blank check the CCSD, the amount is relatively small and we have ways to mitigate that.
I think so, you know, we
So-
just, you know, this will be our first go around.
Right.
With the skate park, but I, you know, I feel comfortable as we have had changes in leadership and changes in efficiencies and starting to look things, from a higher level. I think there's ways that we can capture, the maintenance on the skate park,
Okay.
at least from a staff time perspective.
Mhm.
With minimal,
Mhm.
effect on district finances. You know, long range, when we get into 5, 10, 15 years, how often do you have to reseal it? Has the weather taken its toll on the rails?
Mhm.
You know, all that type of stuff. That's something we need to look at.
And at that point, you'd also have the ability to, if it wasn't something you could service or it wasn't being used, you could shut it down.
Right.
You know, worst case.
Yeah. Dave, you had a question?
So do we ask the tourism board about their 47,000?
Yeah, what happened with that?
We did not, I haven't reached out to them to kind of nudge them to see if they want to reallocate those monies. We went over the language in the agreement. It was pretty tight to the restroom.
I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, we could accept to them, I guess, because it's, you know.
That's okay.
Well, I spoke to,
It's nice
Julie,
if you
and I
did
was
that.
talking to another community member about when the next council meeting was. And maybe go sitting in on it, or the tourism board meeting, excuse me.
So when are we getting a firm fixed price for the skate park construction and stuff?
Good question. So, Spawn Ranch was awarded the contract for design. They should be finishing that within the next 30 to 45 days-ish, which will give us, an idea of the design. We've got the engineer's estimate, and then we're gonna look to go out to RFP within the next month or so.
So like early, like January or so, right?
I'm hopeful for December.
December.
Yeah, depending on how quickly we get these things back from,
Yeah.
from, Aaron Spawn. Once that happens, then we'll go out to RFP, and that's really gonna tell us.
Yeah, so then that's gonna give you a real idea as to whether you're going to have the money left over
Correct.
from what you currently budgeted.
Correct.
With all of the.
Yeah. All our contingency monies that was built into the grant and, you know, all of that.
Yeah,
The
I think
RFP is gonna be key.
that, yeah, and that will give you a much better idea as to whether you're gonna have excess monies to add to this
Right.
funding.
Right.
To put away for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there may be a point in March or April that we need to revisit this.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how much money we have. How much more money we have.
Yes,
Firmer.
yes, much firmer idea. I mean, you're still gonna have. You're gonna get firm fixed price. When those are, having been in the industry for 30 years. So that's gonna be your money. Then you're gonna add 10% to that or so, 12% to cover change orders, et cetera, et cetera. And then hopefully you'll have some left over, and that leftover would be the kind of thing that you have in the back of your mind that you can add to this annuity to stretch it out and to add more than $4,000 if you need it.
Yeah, that definitely could be on the table. I think it'd come sooner than February or March. I mean, we're looking at being funded by the grant. You know, maybe January-ish, you know, because we're right at the tail end of the federal review. And so we got some of the last few documents in, so we're gonna be getting in the queue for funding. So once we get the RFP in and we see how much that is, then, you know, potentially in January, February, this could be a discussion.
Mhm.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, once we get the RFP and once we're funded, we want to go out, for construction, and we gotta have the MOU locked in before we go out to construction. So it'll be a tighter window, but it's definitely something that.
Well, I'm okay with passing this for now, saying, yes,
Yeah.
let's proceed with this plan.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and then maybe revisit it. Maybe in the budget, when that's brought in April to this.
Sure. Yeah.
But that would be a time to say, okay, it looks like we are gonna have some excess, so maybe we'll allocate in our budget for 25, 26. Instead of $5,000, we'll allocate $8,000.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay,
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and that would not affect the MOU. This
No.
5-year window MOU that'll stay in effect. It's just a matter of just, a budget adjustment.
budgeted.
It keeps it
in
simple.
the reserve fund.
Keeps it simple. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to ask for public comment if either either of you want to say anything more? Because,
No, we just want to get a resolve on this.
Okay.
So what I do want to add in notes on is that we are clear on who's holding those funds, because the MOU does allow it to go
Right.
either way. So since we are moving into a position of amending this MOU, I just want to make sure we've got clarification as to how the funds are being held.
well,
I
we'll
think that'd
see.
be a board decision on, how the board is comfortable with who's, if the board says we're comfortable with the Cambria Community Council holding the funds, then I think that then you would move forward that way. But some of the feeling I get is there might be some board members that want it in the district's hands
Yeah,
to manage financially and invest on our side.
all right. Sure.
We would like to keep it with the council, and there hasn't been any issue at all in regards to any invoice getting us immediately paid. So there's obviously a relationship that's already been established in good faith. I think part of that is the narrative to the public with this entire project and just their trust that's been built in getting this over a finish line and having this funds being trusted with the council. So again, happy to do it either way. We're not gonna split hairs on this, but I know we would appreciate if we could keep it with the council.
And when we bring our recommendation to the board, I mean, can we keep the language as it can be either or?
Oh.
I just, because I haven't had this conversation with the general manager, so I don't really want to have it for the first time in this environment. So, but I'd like to talk to him about like just the the process of keeping it with us versus.
I would suggest for today, if the committee makes a recommendation, I'll put this out there is that we leave that option open to the board, but not weigh in on that. I mean, you may want to, I mean, it's up to you, but, I would say we let the board make that decision as to which way they go. In other words, keeps the MOU in its current form, essentially. And in that aspect, the MOU, yes, Scott.
And then just clarifying to the board that the issue is the potential return based on investment that the council could use versus what we can.
And lack of,
and
and
maybe-
more risk, less liquidity,
Exactly.
smaller return, the classic trade-off.
Just very,
Yeah.
very clear and crisp.
So, public comment being concluded, I'll turn this back to the board for discussion and motion. The board, I should say, the committee.
What day is it?
What day is it?
Yeah, so I would make a motion that we proceed with the proposed funding framework for the skate park maintenance to include the $1,000 from the Lions Club and the $4,000 from the community council based on their annuity of $62,000 as stated in the meeting. And recommend to the board that be the $5,000 set aside for the community for the skate park maintenance for the first 5 years.
Now, I want to be careful with the wording of that. Is that motion to have the money? Are we saying the money should be the annuity should be with the community council?
That's the way it currently states, right?
Not necessarily. We're trying to keep it open.
Yeah.
No, the MOU states it could be, it's to be.
Well, I would, yes, I would recommend it to stay with the community council. That's my motion.
I agree.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the funds for maintenance of the skate park for the first 5 years will be held with the community council. And then, of course, we should mention too that the plan is to have a review of the after a 5-year monitoring period for cost to have a review of the MOU or the situation, and with the possibility for renegotiating the MOU if necessary at that point.
Okay.
So, and then the key thing here is the recommendation that the funds be with the community council rather than leaving that up to the board.
So the board's straight up or down on our motion,
On that
not, voting on the option.
Right, as I understand it. Yeah, so I'll have a roll call. Mr. Pearson,
Aye.
Ms. Beck McDowell. Mr. Hendrickson.
Aye.
We can.
Aye.
Ms. Chrisman.
Aye.
Okay, so it's a recommendation to the board. The board, of course, doesn't have to take it.
Right.
Recommendation to the board that the funds stay with community council. Thank you. Okay. I think we're done because I don't think we have any future agenda items to discuss unless you guys want to bring up one, yeah.
Revitalize Cambria is meeting again on Wednesday. And one of the things on the agenda is talk about possible assistance with the vet, all renovations that are needed. The CIP has a listing of projects for the vet hall. That I think are old estimates and, real need of tightening up. So that the revitalized Cambria people will have a better idea as to what mountain they have to climb. Number one, re-roof the entire vet hall building at $100,000. Number one, I don't think it needs it anytime in the next 5 years. I don't know when it was last done, but the appearance is that it's in pretty damn good shape. Yes, the lower roof over here needed to be done and it got done. The vet hall electrical emergency, I assume that includes a new generator. I worked on an estimate for doing the new generator, and at the time, it was pointed out to me that a lot of the other electrical in the building is going to have to be finished out at the same time in order to make that happen properly. And we came up with, that was at least 4 years ago, $100,000. The back we generated it and upgrade the existing electric. So I would like to open the discussion maybe at the next meeting to why, how do we go about getting a better list or getting a better estimate of that? And understanding that Mr. Aguirre is very busy with other things, maybe there are people on the revitalized Cambria who can assist in getting that done. I'd like to bring that up.
Okay, it sounds to me like that list really hasn't been revised for a long time, has it?
Probably not since I've been here,
Yeah.
came on board,
No, and some of these older projects, especially, if they're a number 3 priority, I don't think they've been
So,
looked at, and
yeah.
we reorganized it a little bit, but, then it goes back to how much time and effort do we want to put into getting numbers? I mean, I think we might need basic estimates, because we don't, this could take years, to get this work done and stuff, but yeah, these numbers are off and they're not accurate. And the project should be evaluated too. I don't know if we've really had anyone in a long time come in and really assess like exactly what needs to be done in the vet hall.
So it sounds like what could be done, what could staff do between now and the next finance committee meeting? Or it sounds like too much to come up with the numbers, both a list that's both more accurate and also the numbers that are more up to date. It sounds like it'd be something of a heavy lift for the. Or is it?
Honestly, David's pretty like in tune with what things cost, and David could do a walkthrough on this building and probably update half that list. You'd look at the floors and go, okay, that's 60 grand, I mean, we could get ballpark numbers. And David's been looking at the roof and, obviously like these ceiling tiles and, there's some.
Yeah,
there's
this
some
ceiling
issues.
needs to be ripped out.
Yeah,
This is the best stuff, isn't it?
I'm sure.
I'm sure, yeah.
So you
Oh,
can't
probably
rip
got
it
some
out.
asbestos in it. Well, it depends on the tiles if they're, well, I doubt that it's asbestos. They're not, those, it's not like a.
Yeah,
poplar.
yeah.
But what you're saying is that we might be able to get, kind of a.
We can get a rough, I mean, David really could.
A quick and dirty, at least to start with, and then decide what to do from there on. I mean, I'll put it on the, we'll put it on the agenda for December 10th.
Yeah, maybe.
with the staff
maybe
report.
you could join us. and-
Yes, exactly. We can talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you're talking about kind of targets for fundraising, for private fundraising. That don't have to be exactly,
That's on the agenda, yes.
yeah, exactly down to the dollar amount and all that stuff, but you want to have something to show them that's credible. Okay.
Didn't we talk about the rents here too, raising the rents and reviewing that? And
Oh,
we
well,
never
that-
did.
That process is actually ongoing, isn't it?
That's being done through the fee schedule update.
The fee schedule update, yeah, and and what's the timetable on that? You know, I don't know yet. Don't know yet. That probably won't be ready on December tenth.
No.
So for the next meeting, we will look into the, and as well as getting a report on the, administrative cost allocation. Any other future agenda items? Well, hearing none, I think I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Discussion.
Dave, what's Revitalize Cambria? Is that a new group?